The CEO didn't lower his voice. He wanted everyone to hear it. "That's negligent," he said, pointing at me across the table. "Publicly take responsibility, maybe I'll let you stay." The room froze. Not the kind of silence that waits for clarification, the kind that already decided who was at fault. "My name is Marlene Kessler." I was standing at the front of the room, hands still resting on the podium. The teleprompter behind me stuck on the same unfinished sentence it had been showing for the past 20 seconds. No scrolling, no cues, just my name and a failure they were eager to pin on it. I said, "The system flagged an error yesterday." I sent the warning. The CEO didn't look at the screen. He didn't look at his notes. He looked at the people sitting around the table. "This isn't a technical discussion," he said. "This is about accountability." I turned slightly. Evan, his son, the project lead, stood beside me. He had approved the last-minute changes. He had waved off the delay. He stared straight ahead, jaw tight, as if silence were a strategy. "Say it," the CEO continued. "Tell them it was your mistake." Someone at the far end of the table cleared their throat. No one else spoke. I asked, "If I do, does this end here?" The CEO smiled, slow and confident. "That depends on how cooperative you decide to be." Evan shifted his weight, still didn't say my name. I nodded once. "Okay." The word landed clean, final. The CEO relaxed back into his chair. Evan exhaled. Pens started moving again, as if the moment had already been filed away under resolved. They thought I had accepted blame. What I had actually done was agree to a condition they didn't understand yet. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA, while the characters and events are imagined. The power dynamics, coercion, and consequences reflect real situations where silence is mistaken for submission. When the meeting ended, the CEO called after me, "Marlene, stay." Evan walked past without looking back. The door closed. The CEO said, "This didn't need to turn into a spectacle." I met his eyes. "You made it one." He frowned, then waved it off. "We'll discuss your role tomorrow." I nodded again, picked up my folder, and walked out already aware that by morning, there wouldn't be a role left to discuss. The truth was, the failure didn't start in that room. It started the day before, when I tried to stop it. I found Evan in one of the smaller conference rooms, his laptop open, slides pulled up, already rehearsing. I didn't sit down. "The teleprompter build isn't ready," I said. "The last update was rushed. If we push this live tomorrow, it could freeze." He didn't look up. "It won't." "I'm not guessing," I said. The sync was forced. The fallback script didn't compile. Evan sighed, finally meeting my eyes. "Marlene, investors don't need to see every moving part. They need a clean presentation. Clean doesn't mean stable. It means simple." He shot back. "We're not delaying the rollout because you're uncomfortable." I felt the shift then. Not disagreement. Dismissal. "I'm asking for 1 day," I said. "Just one." He closed his laptop with a soft click. The CEO already approved it. "We're moving forward," I asked. "Did you tell him about the risk Evan stood?" "I told him you were being cautious, like always." The word stuck. Cautious. As if I hadn't been the one fixing problems after everyone else rushed ahead. I sent the warning email anyway. I documented everything. I copied compliance. Just in case. None of it mattered. Standing in that presentation room the next day, with the teleprompter frozen and the CEO pointing at me, I understood exactly why Evan stayed silent. This wasn't confusion. It was design. After the meeting, I caught up to him in the hallway. "You could have said something," I said quietly. He didn't slow down. "It was your system. You approved the change." He stopped, finally turning. "And you were responsible for making sure it worked. So that's it." I said, "You let me take it." Evan's voice dropped. "You've been here a long time. Marlene, people expect stability from you, and mistakes from you," I asked. His jaw tightened. "This isn't personal." It was the first lie he told me directly. I watched him walk away, already knowing the damage was done. The blame hadn't landed on me by accident. It had been waiting, neatly assigned. Long before anything actually went wrong, the CEO called me into his office less than an hour after the presentation ended. He didn't offer a seat. He didn't raise his voice either, which was how I knew this conversation mattered more than the one in the conference room. "Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be," he said. folding his hands on the desk. What happened today shook people, investors, staff. We need to restore confidence, I said, by asking me to apologize. He nodded, as if we were agreeing on a technical detail, by showing unity. Unity, I repeated. Yes, he said. When someone makes a mistake, the team stands together. I looked at him. You didn't say mistake. You said negligent. His mouth tightened briefly. Words get chosen in the moment, not that one. I said. That one was deliberate. He leaned back. You've been here a long time. Marlene? You know how this works. I know how accountability works, I said. And I know who approved the changes. That's not relevant anymore. I felt the pressure settle then, heavy and exact. This wasn't about fixing anything. It was about alignment. He continued. Evan is leading this initiative. He represents where the company's going. Fresh ideas, momentum. We can't undermine that over a presentation glitch. A glitch you were warned about. He waved his hand. You're focusing on the wrong part, I asked. Which part should I focus on? He met my eyes. The part where you decide whether you're still a team player. There it was. Clean, unvarnished. I took a breath. If I don't apologize publicly, am I removed from the project? He didn't hesitate. Yes. And my role after that? We'll evaluate, he said. But I won't have someone on my leadership team who can't support our direction. I nodded slowly. So loyalty, in this case, means silence. It means trust, he corrected. No, I said. It means standing still while someone else steps forward. His expression hardened. Be careful, I said. That's why I'm asking plainly. He stood, signaling the meeting was over. Think about what you're risking. I gathered my folder. When I walked out, I understood the choice clearly. Staying meant agreeing to disappear in place. Leaving meant losing everything I'd built. I didn't feel brave. I felt cornered. But I also knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to apologize for something I didn't do. What if the contract everyone forgot about remembered you? I didn't pour a drink. I didn't pace. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop the way I always did when something needed to be verified. Not felt. The file was still there. Original employment agreement, signed years ago. Back when the company still called itself a startup and not a brand. Back when titles were vague and responsibilities were real. I scrolled slowly. No urgency. No hope either. Clause headings passed by like old acquaintances. Scope, termination, confidentiality. Then I saw it. Derivative rights advisory role, protections. I stopped scrolling. The language was plain. Almost casual. In the event of removal from a project without due process or documented cause, the originating architect retained ownership and control of derivative systems developed independently of executive oversight. I read it again, then a third time. My phone buzzed. Lena, compliance counsel I had worked with years earlier. Did you see the replay? She asked. I did. I said. A pause. That was aggressive. They wanted an apology. I said. Public. Another pause. Longer this time. Did you give it? I said. Okay. Her breath caught. Marlene. Okay means something different to them than it does to you. I know. You should be careful, she said. They'll try to push you out quietly. I know, I said again. I turned the screen toward myself, scrolling back to the signature page. My name, my date, their signature below it, untouched by amendments. Lena spoke softly. Do you remember why you insisted on that clause? Yes, I said, because I didn't trust verbal assurances. Silence settled between us. If they remove you, she said carefully. They lose more than a seat in a meeting. I'm aware. You're not thinking of confronting them, are you? No, I said. I'm done explaining. I closed the laptop. The decision wasn't dramatic. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like clarity. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't defend myself. I wouldn't offer context to people who had already decided the outcome. If they wanted me gone, I would let the contract answer for me. I stood, cleared the table, and set my badge beside the door. By morning, everything would be very simple. How do you know when a decision is final? I found out the moment my badge stopped working. I held it to the scanner once, then again. The light stayed red. Try it one more time, the security guard said, not unkindly. He didn't know my name. He didn't need to. It won't, I said. He glanced at his screen. Access revoked at 7:12 this morning. I nodded and stepped aside. Thank you, upstairs. My desk looked like it belonged to someone who had never existed. No notebook, no framed photo, no reference binders I'd built over years. Even the chair was pushed in neatly, like they were proud of how quickly they erased me. My manager, Paul, hovered near the copy room. He saw me and froze. They told us not to interrupt you, he said quietly. I'm not busy, I replied. He swallowed. HR left something for you. The envelope was centered on the desk. Inside was a resignation template. Pre-filled. My name, my title, today's date. Paul cleared his throat. They said it would be easier if you signed. Easier for who I asked. He didn't answer. I sat down, picked up the pen, and signed my name exactly the way I always did. No shaking, no pause. Paul exhaled like he'd been holding his breath all morning. I'm sorry, I know, I said. My phone buzzed. A message from Evan. This didn't have to go this way. I typed back one sentence. You chose the way. I stood, slid the signed paper back into the envelope, and walked toward the elevator. Paul followed me a few steps. Is there anything you need? Yes, I said. Make sure they log the time correctly. He frowned. The time of my departure. I said, it matters. The elevator doors closed before he could ask why. In the lobby, I handed my badge to security. Good luck, the guard said. I nodded and stepped outside without looking back. There was no farewell, no final speech, no one chasing me down the hallway. What surprised me most wasn't how quiet it was. It was how complete it felt. Why would a company lawyer panic after someone resigns? I was halfway to the exit when I heard footsteps behind me fast, uneven. Marlene. I turned to see Robert Hale, the company's senior counsel, coming down the hallway without his jacket, phone still in his hand. He didn't slow down when he reached me. Where are you going? He asked. I resigned. I said, HR has the paperwork. He blinked once. Who approved your removal from the project? I didn't realize it required a committee vote, I said. The CEO made it clear. Robert's jaw tightened. Did he remove you directly? Yes. In writing in front of witnesses, I said. And then this morning. He didn't say anything else. He turned sharply and walked back toward the executive wing. I followed not because he asked, but because I wanted to hear what came next. The CEO's door was already open. Robert didn't knock. Who approved Marlene Kessler's removal from the project? He asked, loud enough that the assistants outside went still. The CEO looked up from his desk, annoyed. I did. She refused to cooperate. Robert took a step closer. You removed her without a performance review. She admitted fault. She said one word. Robert said, that is not an admission. The CEO stood. This is my call. Robert's voice dropped. Then it's your liability. Silence spread through the room. Evan was there too, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. What are you talking about? The CEO said. Robert turned slightly, just enough to include Evan in the conversation. Marlene was not just staff. She was the originating architect on the presentation pipeline. Her contract includes derivative ownership protections. That's ancient history, the CEO said. It was renewed, Robert replied, 3 times. The last one during the compliance restructure. Evan uncrossed his arms. You're saying what exactly? I'm saying, Robert continued, that the moment you removed her without due process, the company lost authorization to use the system she built. The CEO laughed once. You're overreacting. Robert didn't smile. I'm reacting exactly enough. He turned to me. When did you sign the resignation? I told him the time. He nodded, as if confirming a calculation. Then as of that minute, he said, looking back at the CEO, you no longer have access. No one spoke after that. I adjusted the strap of my bag and stepped back toward the door. Robert didn't stop me. He didn't need to. What happens when something doesn't break but simply stops responding? I wasn't in the building when the investor session started. I didn't need to be. My phone told the story before anyone said my name. Evan called first. I let it ring. Then a message came through from Paul, my former manager. Are you watching this? I replied with one word, no. Inside the boardroom, Evan stood at the front, remote in hand. He clicked once. Nothing happened. He clicked again. Just a second, he said, forcing a smile. Looks like a refresh issue. One of the partners leaned forward. We were told this system was proprietary. It is, Evan said quickly. We're just experiencing a delay. From what Robert later told me, the screen didn't freeze. It went blank. A simple notice appeared where the dashboard should have been. Authorization required. Evan tried logging in again. Different credentials, same result. This worked yesterday, he said, louder now. A woman from the investment group spoke up. Is this a technical failure? Robert answered before Evan could. No. The room shifted. What do you mean? No, another partner asked. It's a licensing issue, Robert said. Not a malfunction. Evan turned to him. Why wasn't I informed of this? Robert didn't lower his voice. Because it wasn't an issue until this morning. And now the CEO asked. Now, Robert said. We are using software we are no longer authorized to access. Silence followed, not confusion. Calculation. One of the partners closed his folder, so the data isn't unavailable. It's restricted. That's correct, Robert said. By whom? The partner asked. Robert hesitated, then answered plainly. By the original architect. Evan's face drained of color. That's not possible. Robert looked at him. It's already happening. The meeting ended early. No arguments, no raised voices. Just people standing, shaking hands stiffly, and leaving without scheduling the next step. An hour later, I received a single email from the CEO's office. We need to talk. I read it once, then archived it. Nothing had crashed. Nothing had been sabotaged. The system was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was responding to authority. What if the answer was hidden in plain sight for years? I wasn't invited to the emergency executive meeting. But Robert called me before it started. They're all here, he said. Board members, finance, Evan. Your name is already on the screen. I'm not joining. I said, I didn't ask you to. He replied, I just wanted you to know what's about to happen. An hour later, he called again. The CEO opened by calling this a misunderstanding. Robert said, that lasted about 3 minutes. I pictured the room easily enough. He asked why the system locked him out. Robert continued. I told him it didn't lock him out. It recognized the contract. What did Evan say? I asked. He said the software belonged to the company, Robert replied. So I asked him to read the signature page. There was a pause on the line. I put the document on the screen. Robert went on. Your name was already there. Dated, verified. Then I highlighted the clause. He read it out loud to me, even though I already knew it by heart. In the event of removal without documented cause or due process, all derivative systems revert to the originating architect. Usage rights are immediately suspended. And then I asked. Silence, he said. Not confusion. Recognition. The CEO tried to argue. Robert added. He said intent mattered. And you said I said contracts don't care about intent. They care about signatures. Another pause. He asked when the suspension took effect. Robert said, and I told him the exact minute you signed the resignation. I leaned back in my chair. Evan asked if this could be reversed. Robert said, I told him yes. If you agreed, I didn't. I said, I know. The CEO finally asked what okay meant. Robert said quietly. I told him it meant acceptance of his terms. Did he understand then? I asked. Yes. Robert said. He just didn't like what his terms actually were. The call ended there. I didn't feel victorious. I felt settled. They had read the clause. They had seen the signature. They had understood too late. That authority doesn't come from titles or volume. It comes from agreements you bothered to honor. Who pays the price when favoritism replaces competence? The first call came from human resources, not the CEO. We wanted to inform you, the woman said, a voice careful, that the board has placed the chief executive on administrative leave pending a formal investigation. I said nothing. There were concerns raised about governance, she continued. Process failures. Was I named? I asked. A pause. Yes. And the board requested all communications related to your removal, she said. Including recordings. I don't have any. I said, they do. Another pause. We also wanted to ask if you'd be open to discussing terms. I'm not, I said. The next call came from Evan. I almost didn't answer. Almost. This went too far, he said, skipping any pretense. You knew what would happen. I knew what I agreed to. I said, you knew what you approved. They're blaming me, he said. They say I bypassed review. You did. They're shelving the project, he snapped. Indefinitely. That's a decision, I said, not a punishment. He exhaled sharply. You could fix this. I could, I said, and you won't? I didn't break it. I said. I won't pretend I did. He lowered his voice. They're letting me go. I didn't respond. Marlene, he said, quieter now. This wasn't supposed to end like this. It didn't end, I said. It concluded. He hung up without saying goodbye. By the end of the week, the announcements came quietly. No press release, no explanations. The project was paused, budgets reallocated, leadership realigned. Evan's name disappeared from internal directories overnight. I received 3 separate emails offering to reopen negotiations. Each one referenced urgency. Each one avoided responsibility. I declined them all. On Friday evening, Robert sent a final message. The board understands your position. They won't pursue further contact. I replied once, thank you. Walking away didn't feel like victory. It felt like accuracy. They made their choices. They assigned their blame. They protected who they wanted to protect until the consequences demanded payment. I didn't collect anything from them. I simply refused to carry what was never mine to begin with. Accountability finally arrived the way it always does, quietly, and too late to be negotiated. I wrote the email once and didn't revise it. I accepted responsibility. The rest followed your decision. I addressed it to the board, copied legal, and left the CEO off entirely. Not out of spite, out of accuracy. He had already made himself irrelevant. Robert called me an hour later. They asked if you'd consider returning on a consulting basis. I won't, I said. They're restructuring, he added, splitting oversight, external audits. No more single owner approvals. I hope it helps. I said, it will, he replied. Just not the way they planned? I never went back to the building. I didn't retrieve anything I left behind. What mattered had already come with me. Over the next weeks, I heard fragments leadership shuffled. The project dissolved into smaller pieces. Timelines reset by quarters instead of days. People stopped using my name as a problem and started using it as a reference point. Evan tried once more. A short message, no subject line. I didn't know it would cost this much. I didn't answer. Some realizations don't need witnesses. The board sent a final note through council, confirming no further contact. It read like a conclusion written by people who had finally learned to read carefully. I closed my laptop and sat with the stillness. Not relief, not triumph, just the absence of pressure where it had lived for years. There's a difference between accountability and obedience. Obedience asks you to absorb blame so others can advance. Accountability asks you to honor the truth, even when it costs you access, comfort, or approval. When you build something with care, protect it with clarity, read what you sign, mean what you say, and understand that silence is not surrender when it's chosen. It's consent to consequences on your terms. I had already taken responsibility. Everything else simply followed. The moment my boss said the number, I knew this wasn't about my work anymore. You're fired, Mark said, folding his hands like he was about to discuss lunch plans. We found someone who can do the role for 40% of your salary. I didn't answer right away. I looked at the woman from Human Resources sitting beside him. Her laptop was already open. My name was already on the screen. For clarity, I said, keeping my voice steady. This isn't about performance. Mark shook his head. No issues there. This is a restructuring decision. Budget alignment. After 11 years, I said. He shrugged. The market changes. My name is Emily. I'm 43 years old. I joined this company when our reporting system was a mess and our vendors didn't trust our numbers. I stayed through mergers, audits, and weekends spent fixing mistakes that weren't mine. None of that came up in the room. The HR representative slid a document toward me. We'll need you to hand over system access before the end of the day. Before the end of the day, I repeated. Yes, she said. For continuity, I nodded once. Who's taking over? Mark smiled. Quick and practiced. A younger hire, strong with data, very cost-effective. So, I said, this is it. That's correct. I stood. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask for time. I picked up my notebook and my phone. Mark cleared his throat. We'd appreciate discretion. I met his eyes. You already have it. I left the room without another word. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Resigned, AITA, inspired by real workplace conflicts and power dynamics. All characters and events are fictional, designed to explore themes of dignity, consequence, and self-worth through narrative storytelling. At my desk, No one looked up. I packed slowly. My badge still worked. My inbox still refreshed. Everything functioned exactly as it had that morning, as if nothing had changed. When I shut down my computer, the system kept running. That was the part they hadn't thought through. Why does losing a job feel louder when no one says goodbye? I slid the top drawer open and pulled out the framed photo of my parents at Lake Erie. My phone buzzed. "Emily," said Jason from IT, low and rushed. "I'm supposed to confirm you're logged out." "From which systems?" I asked. A pause. "Most of them." "Most," I repeated. "Email access is scheduled. Reporting tools are either pending how your permissions are nested," he said carefully. "Unwinding them takes time." I set the frame in my bag. "Take your time." He exhaled. "I'm sorry, don't be." I said, "Just do your job." I stood and felt eyes on me without anyone meeting my gaze. Megan from finance pretended to read her screen. Carl from compliance stared at his coffee like it had offended him. I stopped at the end of the aisle. Mark asked for access by end of day. I said evenly. "I'm still here until then." No one answered. Jason texted again. "Some dashboards are still live." I typed back. "They're scheduled jobs. Don't touch them." A new message popped up. This one from Mark. "Please leave your badge on the desk." I walked into his doorway and held it up. "You want this now?" He didn't look at me. "Yes." "Before I finish handover." He cleared his throat. "We'll manage." I placed the badge down, then manage, back at my desk. The alert chimed the weekly forecast finished processing. On time, clean, no errors. It would send automatically to the executive distribution list. Jason called again. "Emily, the model just ran." "I know." I said. "Do you want me to stop it?" "No," I said. "Let it do what it's supposed to do." I shut the laptop and stood. My access light was still green, not because I was clinging to anything, but because the work was... What kind of company fires someone and still expects them to show up? My phone started ringing before I reached my car. I let it buzz. Then it buzzed again. By the third time, the caller ID stopped pretending. "Emily," the voice said when I answered. "Where are you?" "This is Daniel Pierce," he continued, already irritated. "We're starting the mid-year review in 40 minutes. "I won't be there," I said. A pause. "You're the presenter. I was fired this morning." Silence. Not a polite one. The kind that recalculates. "By whom?" Daniel asked. "Mark Reynolds." Another pause. I heard paper shift. A keyboard tap. "That doesn't make sense," he said. "You're listed as lead on operations, forecasting, and vendor risk. I was told I'm replaceable." I said, "Someone cheaper." His breath sharpened. "Cheaper than what, 40% of my salary?" "That's not a metric," he said flatly. It was enough for Mark. Daniel lowered his voice. "Did human resources document cause? They documented urgency?" "That's not cause." I leaned against the door. "What do you need from me?" "Daniel, I need to know," he said. "Why the executive summary shows your authorization code." "Because I built the review," I said. "It runs on my models." "You're telling me," he said slowly. "The person presenting doesn't understand the data." "I'm telling you," I said. "I'm no longer authorized to present anything." Another silence. He didn't apologize. He didn't ask me to come back. "Not yet." "Stay available," he said. "Do not delete anything." "I won't touch a thing," I said. "That includes the review." He exhaled. "I'll call you back." When the line went dead, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a call. It was an internal alert. The mid-year review had been pulled from the calendar. Who actually has the authority to erase someone? My phone rang again before I pulled out of the parking lot. "Emily, this is Karen Holt from Human Resources," the woman said. Her tone was careful, practiced. "I need to verify a few details regarding your termination." "Go ahead," I said. "Can you confirm you met with Mark Reynolds this morning?" "Yes." "And he informed you that your employment was ending effective immediately?" "Yes." She hesitated. "Did he cite any performance issues?" "No." "Any disciplinary actions, written warnings?" "None." I heard typing. "A lot of it." "Did he provide severance documentation?" Karen asked. "No." "Exit procedures?" "He asked for system access by end of day." More typing. Then she stopped. "Emily," she said, lowering her voice. "Were you aware that your role is designated as critical coverage for executive review?" I said. "That's why I built the mid-year review." Another pause. And did Mark indicate he had approval from the vice president of operations? He did not. That's a problem, she said quietly. For who? I asked. For the company, she said. And for Mark? She cleared her throat. Your termination was submitted as a cost-based restructuring. That's accurate, I said. He told me my replacement costs 40% of my salary. Karen exhaled. Cost is not a standalone justification for immediate termination in a critical role. So what happens now? I asked. We flag it, she said. We pause processing. We verify authorization. And you remain inactive, she said carefully. Not terminated. Not reinstated. I nodded. So I exist in limbo. Yes, she said, for now. My phone chimed again before she could continue. Karen stopped. That will be the vice president. I assumed, I said. One more thing, she added. Please do not share access, documents, or explanations unless directed by us. I won't, I said. I no longer work there. After the call ended, I sat still for a moment. Mark hadn't just fired me. He'd skipped steps he didn't understand. What does regret sound like when it's panicking? Mark didn't waste time pretending this was a courtesy call. Emily, he said the moment I answered, we need you back. Immediately, I said nothing. There's been a misunderstanding, he continued. Words tumbling over each other now. HR raised concerns about the process. We can fix this. You fired me, I said. That part was clear. I didn't expect the review to be pulled, he said. Daniel is asking questions. A lot of them. That sounds like his job, I said. Mark inhaled sharply. You built the reporting structure, the forecasts, the risk overlays. No one else understands how the pieces connect. You told me it was simple. I said systematic. That was he stopped. Tried again. That was poorly phrased. You said I was replaceable. I said the role is me. I said. Silence pressed in. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped. We're prepared to discuss compensation, he said. A title adjustment, expanded scope. Whatever it takes. Yesterday morning, I said. You didn't want a discussion. I was under pressure, he said. Corporate wants lean numbers, and I was the number you cut. I said, Emily, listen to me, he said. We have nothing to present. The new hire can't even open the model without breaking it. Daniel wants answers by end of day. That's unfortunate, I said. Unfortunate. His voice cracked. This is a disaster. You made a mistake. I said, no, he shot back. I made a decision. I let that sit between us. Come back, he said quietly. Just for the review. I won't, I said. We'll put everything in writing. You already did, I said, in a conference room. With HR present, he lowered his voice. If you don't help, this lands on me. I ended the call. I had spent years being the solution to other people's emergencies. This one wasn't mine anymore. How do you recognize collapse when it starts quietly? The email came from Daniel first. Emily. He wrote, we have a discrepancy. I waited until my phone rang. Talk to me, I said. The supplier variance doesn't match the internal forecast, he said. The numbers conflict. They always will if the assumptions are changed, I said. They weren't supposed to be changed. He said. Mark approved a revision this morning without recalibration, I said. Yes. He said, apparently. Another call cut in. I answered. This is Priya Shah, the woman said. North Shore Components. We submitted our delivery report. Your system flagged it as an anomaly. It would, I said, if the intake thresholds were adjusted. They were, she said, by someone new. I exhaled. Then your report is fine. So why are they asking us to resubmit, she asked. Because they don't know which layer they broke, I said. A third call came through. Mark. Emily, we need you, he said. Skipping everything else. The numbers don't line up. Suppliers are calling Daniel directly. I told you I'm not authorized. I said. You know how to fix it, he said. I know how to prevent it, I said. Fixing it requires access. Then tell us what to do, he said. I lowered my voice. Stop changing inputs you don't understand. That doesn't help, he said. We already did. I won't intervene without authority, I said. That protects everyone. You're letting this happen, he said. No. I said, I'm not stopping it. Daniel came back on the line. Emily, are you refusing to assist? I'm refusing to operate unofficially, I said. You can reinstate me, or you can own the results. Silence stretched. I could hear someone whispering on his end. "We'll call you back," Daniel said. They didn't. That afternoon, the revised forecast went out anyway. It contradicted the supplier report by enough to trigger a compliance review. No alarms blared, no systems crashed. But the record was set, and it was wrong. "What does respect feel like when it's real?" Emily Carter, the woman said, standing as I entered the conference room. "I'm Laura McKenna. Thank you for coming." She didn't rush me. She didn't check her phone. She waited until we were both seated. "I've read your background," Laura said. 11 years in operations, forecasting, supplier risk." "Yes," I said. "I'm not interested in how fast you work," she continued. "I want to know how you think." That was new. She slid a printed packet across the table. "This is our current reporting structure. It's not good." I skimmed it once. "It's reactive." She nodded. "Exactly." "You're scaling without insulation," I said. "You'll feel it when volume spikes." Laura leaned back. "That's what I needed someone to say." "I'm not looking for a quick fix role," I said. "If you want clean numbers, you'll need to tolerate quiet weeks while we rebuild." She didn't interrupt. "You'll also need to let me say no," I added. "Sometimes the safest answer is not ready." Laura smiled. "Just slightly." "What do you need to succeed?" "Authority," I said. "Clear ownership, and time." "How much time?" she asked. 3 months before you judge results," I said. 6 before you rely on them." She made a note. "That's reasonable. No one's ever said that to me," I said before I could stop myself. She looked up. "That concerns me. It used to," I said. Laura closed the folder. "We're opening a second facility next year. I don't want chaos disguised as growth." "Then don't automate confusion," I said. She laughed. "You're direct." "I've learned to be," I said. She stood and offered her hand. "I'll have an offer ready by the end of the week." I shook it. "I'll review it carefully." When I walked out, my phone stayed silent for the first time in days. That felt right. Who takes responsibility when no one can explain the numbers? Daniel called once that morning, not to ask for help. "You don't need to join," he said, "but I want you to know what's happening." "I'm listening," I said. "The review is postponed," he said. "Mark will present what he can, alone." I pictured Mark standing at the front of that room, the one he used to control with confident summaries and borrowed certainty. "He asked for your notes," Daniel added. "I don't have any to give," I said. "I told him that," Daniel said. He wasn't pleased. The meeting started without me. I knew the sequence by memory. Executive summary first, risk exposure second, supplier variance last. Daniel called again 40 minutes later. "He can't explain the delta," he said. "The board is asking where the assumptions changed." "Did he say?" I asked. "He said the system recalibrated automatically." And I said, "And they asked who designed the recalibration." Daniel said, "He said you did." I did. I said, "Under controlled conditions." There was noise on his end, a chair scraping, someone coughing. "The contradiction is on the screen," Daniel said. "Supplier numbers don't match internal projections." "That's because they altered the intake thresholds," I said. I warned him. Daniel lowered his voice. "He denied that. I documented it." I said, "Inversion history." Another pause. Longer this time. "They're removing his approval authority," Daniel said finally. "Effective immediately." I closed my eyes, not from relief, from certainty. "He'll stay on," Daniel continued. "But all decisions route through operations oversight now." "That's your call," I said. "It wasn't," Daniel said. "It was theirs." When the call ended, my phone stayed quiet. The review didn't happen. The consequences did. What do you owe a place that already replaced you? My first week at the new company began with introductions that felt deliberate instead of rushed. Laura walked me through the priorities herself. "We start by stabilizing," she said. "No heroics." "Good," I said. "Heroics hide problems." She nodded. "I want clean inputs before we talk growth." At noon, my phone buzzed. An email preview slid across the screen. The sender was familiar. Subject: consulting support, immediate need. I didn't open it right away. Laura noticed the pause. "Everything okay?" "Yes," I said. "Just an old door knocking." "Do you need to answer it?" she asked. "I don't," I said. "Later, in my office." I read the message. "Emily, we are experiencing operational disruption following recent leadership changes. Your expertise would be invaluable. Please advise your availability and consulting rate as soon as possible." No greeting, no acknowledgement, no apology. My phone rang before I could close it. Mark's number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call, then a text. This doesn't have to be complicated. We're willing to compensate appropriately. I typed a response, deleted it. Typed another, deleted that too. Laura knocked lightly. We're reviewing supplier onboarding in 10 minutes. I'll be there, I said. She hesitated. You sure you're good? I closed my laptop. I am. The meeting was focused. Decisions were documented. No one asked me to clean up after them. When it ended, I returned to my desk and opened the email one last time. I read it carefully, the way I used to read contracts. Then I deleted it. I blocked the number, not because I was angry, not because I wanted them to fail, because I had already moved to a place where urgency did not replace accountability. And I wasn't going back. What if getting fired wasn't the ending, just the release? The last message from my old company stayed unread for 3 days. Not because I was debating it, but because it no longer belonged to my time. When I finally deleted it, the motion felt small and exact. I blocked the number right after. No announcement, no final word. Laura stopped by my office that afternoon. Operations wants your sign-off on the new intake rules, she said. They won't move without it. Send them through, I said. She smiled. They trust you. At the end of the week, Daniel called once more. He didn't ask for help. I wanted you to hear it from me, he said. Mark's still here, but he's not deciding anything anymore. Oversight took his approvals. I'm not surprised. I said, he's frustrated, Daniel added. I said, for a long time. There was a pause, then a softer tone. You built something solid, he said. We didn't protect it. I protected it, I said. By leaving, my days filled quickly with work that asked for judgment instead of obedience. Meetings ended with decisions, not deferrals. When problems surfaced, they were named and owned. No one asked me to make things look easy. On Friday, Laura stopped me in the hallway. You're changing how people think about this place, she said. I'm just doing the work, I said. That's the point, she replied. At home that night, I set my phone down and didn't check it again. There was nothing waiting that required my rescue. Here's the life lesson I took with me: loyalty without respect is just unpaid labor. And clarity is worth more than any counteroffer. When you stop negotiating your value with people who already decided it was a cost, you create space for the work and the life that fits you. I didn't win by returning. I won by becoming unavailable. Some people don't lose you all at once. They lose you the moment they decide you're replaceable. What would you do if one sentence turned your entire career into a public execution? I stood before anyone else could fill the silence. I need to take responsibility for something. My voice stayed level. I made a serious mistake. If it costs the company money, I'm prepared to make it right. The room froze, not in confusion, but in expectation. At the head of the table, Celeste Vaughn finally looked up. How much money are we talking about? Mia, a significant amount, I replied. Enough that I wanted to say it out loud before rumors did. A chair scraped. Someone inhaled. No one asked what happened. Celeste's mouth curved. Barely. So you're admitting fault. I'm admitting responsibility. That distinction doesn't matter here. She turned without looking at me. Human resources document this. Now. My stomach tightened. Celeste leaned forward, elbows light on the table. Do you know how much damage people like you cause when you're careless? People like you. I'm willing to cover the loss personally, I said. If that's what accountability requires. Her eyes sharpened. Good. Then we'll suspend your access while we assess how deep this goes. She didn't wait. Lock her out. A soft chime rippled across the table as my access disappeared in real time. Someone glanced at their phone. Someone else stared at the screen, and then away. This meeting is about accountability, Celeste continued. And accountability starts with consequences. The display shifted. A disciplinary template appeared, my name already typed in, fields already filled, prepared, polished, waiting. I lowered myself back into my chair. My hands didn't shake. That was important, too, because in that moment, I understood something with painful clarity. This wasn't a reaction. It was a plan. The story you're about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. Each story explores power, perception, and the moments when people reveal who they are once they believe no one important is watching. The meeting moved on without me. Voices blurred into policy language and deadlines. I watched colleagues avoid my eyes, watched the way fear reorganized the room. I had offered them a mistake. They had been ready with a sentence. How fast can a workplace turn its back on you when you look weak? Human resources called within 10 minutes. The room was small, intentionally neutral. Mina Park sat across from me with a folder already open. She didn't offer a greeting. She slid the papers forward instead. "This is a voluntary responsibility acknowledgement," she said. "Standard procedure." I scanned the first page, my name, today's date. Language that sounded cooperative until it wasn't. "And this," I tapped the second document. "A confidentiality agreement," Mina replied. "It protects everyone." "Everyone," I repeated. "Except me." Her mouth tightened. "This is the practical route. Mia. Signing shows maturity. I haven't seen an investigation," I said. "I haven't been asked what happened." Mina folded her hands. "We're being realistic. Escalation helps no one. People like you." The words implied, even if she didn't say them out loud. "If I don't sign," I asked. She exhaled softly. "Then legal steps in." That changes the tone. Records follow you. The threat sat between us, calm and polished. I pushed the folder back. "I need time." Mina's eyes flicked to the door. "Time makes things worse." Outside, the office felt different. Conversations cut off when I approached. Smiles didn't reach eyes. One by one, people looked away. At my desk, my inbox was empty. Not quiet empty. A message from the team channel failed to load. Another notification blinked and vanished. I turned to Jonas, who sat 2 seats down. "Did something happen to the project chat?" He didn't look up. "They're reorganizing communication, reorganizing," I said. He nodded once, already opening another window. "It's temporary. By noon." The silence was complete. No calendar invites, no questions, no follow-ups, only the low hum of keyboards and the careful distance people kept from my chair. In the afternoon, Celeste passed by with 2 managers. She didn't stop. She didn't slow. She spoke just loud enough to carry Horit. "Accountability matters," she said. "Some people don't understand consequences until they face them." No one disagreed. I watched the room recalibrate, fear replacing familiarity, survival replacing curiosity. Not one person asked what had actually happened. Not one person asked if the mistake was real. By the time I packed up to leave, the pattern was unmistakable. Kindness hadn't disappeared. It had been withdrawn. Why do people become braver when they think you have nothing to lose? I learned that answer the hard way. I'd always been easy to overlook. I dressed simply. I didn't talk about my weekends. I never pushed my chair back too hard in meetings or fought for airtime. People describe me as solid, reliable, low maintenance, the kind of employee no one worried about and no one protected. That morning, I stopped outside the glass conference room when I heard my name. "She doesn't have leverage anyway," a senior manager said, his voice casual. "This will blow over once she signs." Another voice followed, quieter but sharper. "People like her always sign." I kept standing there. Neither of them noticed. Later, Celeste called a short check-in with department heads. I was invited in name only. She didn't look at me once. "We're tightening standards," she said, tapping her pen lightly. "Some roles require a certain caliber. Not everyone is built for pressure." A few people nodded. Someone glanced at me and then away. Celeste continued, calm and precise. "This isn't personal, it's about alignment." Alignment, another word that sounded harmless until it wasn't. After the meeting, I crossed paths with Evan from operations. We'd worked side by side for years. "This is rough," he muttered. "But leadership has to draw lines. Lines around what I asked." He shifted his weight. "Risk, exposure, and I'm the risk," I said. Evan didn't answer. He checked his watch instead. I should get back. That was the pattern. No raised voices. No slammed doors. Just quiet agreements made without me in the room. I'd seen this before. Different company, different title, same playbook. A leader arrives promising order, finds the quiet one, decides silence means consent. I returned to my desk and opened a blank document. Not to explain myself, but to take notes. If this was how power behaved when it thought no one important was watching, then what came next was inevitable. Who betrays you first when survival is on the line? Jonas didn't expect me to sit down. I closed the chair across from him and waited until he looked up. His eyes flicked to the hallway, then back to his screen. "You're not supposed to be here," he murmured. "I know," I replied. "That's why I'm asking you directly." He leaned back slightly, guarded. "About what, the email?" I said. "The one that made this look deliberate." Jonas laughed once, too quickly. "Mia, you're reading into things. I'm not," I answered. "I saw the metadata before my access was cut." That did it. His smile slipped. "You forwarded it?" I continued. "Not accidentally, not as part of a review." "You sent it upstream." He rubbed his hands together, buying time. I was asked to clarify the timeline. "Clarify?" I echoed. "By attaching my name." His voice dropped. "You don't understand the pressure." "I understand exactly." I said. "You had a choice." Jonas finally met my eyes. I couldn't afford to be on the wrong side. The words landed harder than I expected. "I pulled you into this team," I said quietly. "I covered for you when you missed deadlines. I told them you were ready when you weren't." "I know," he replied. "And I'm grateful, but gratitude doesn't pay rent, so you let them frame me." He flinched. "They already decided, and you helped," I said. "That's different." Jonas exhaled, defeated. I stayed quiet because I thought it would pass. "Silence is still a choice," I replied. A beat passed, then another. "I'm sorry," he offered, too late and too softly. I stood. "Don't be." As I turned to leave, he spoke again. "They're using you as an example." "I noticed," I said, walking away. The hurt settled in slowly, not because he chose himself, but because he had convinced himself there was no other option. That was the lesson. No one had to push him. He stepped aside willingly. What if the mistake was never the point? I stopped trying to correct the record the moment I understood that accuracy didn't interest them. Character did. And that was the test I had set quietly, deliberately, before Celeste ever took her seat at the head of the table. I wasn't looking for brilliance. I wasn't even looking for fairness. I wanted to see how power behaved when it thought it was safe to be ugly. That afternoon, I listened. A junior analyst lingered near the doorway, clutching a notepad. I followed the process. She said to a manager, "I just need clarification." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "If you're unsure," he replied, "maybe you're not ready for this level of responsibility." She nodded, apologetic, and stepped back. In the hallway, Celeste passed a cluster of assistants. "We can't afford hesitation right now," she said lightly. "Mistakes come from people who don't understand consequences," one assistant whispered. "She means Mia," and the others went quiet. Later, Human Resources called a coordinator into a side room. The door stayed ajar. "This is a sensitive moment," Mina said. "We need cooperation. Don't complicate things." "I just had a question about the form," the coordinator replied. "Questions slow us down," Mina said. "Be practical." I took notes, not names patterns. Fear moved faster than facts. Intimidation wore professional language. Scapegoats were chosen early so decisions could feel decisive. By the end of the day, the story had settled without evidence. I was the example. Everyone else was learning how to survive. Jonas avoided my desk entirely. Evan walked past without a word. A new hire glanced at me, then quickly at the floor. I closed my laptop and leaned back, calm in a way that surprised me. They were telling me everything I needed to know, not with explanations. With behavior, and once you see a pattern clearly, you stop hoping someone else will interrupt it. What do you do when a room is designed to make you surrender? The invitation went out to the entire department before I received mine. Mandatory disciplinary review. Attendance required. By the time I walked in, the narrative was already set. Chairs filled quickly, conversations stopped when I took a seat. No one sat beside me. Celeste entered last. She didn't look at the room. She looked at me. "This meeting is about closure," she said, her tone smooth, not blame. Mina from Human Resources placed a folder in front of me, thicker than the last one. "Final acknowledgement," she said quietly. "Once this is signed, we can move forward." "Forward for who?" I asked. Mina's expression didn't change. "For the company." Celeste folded her hands. "We need to show decisiveness. People are watching." A manager near the screen cleared his throat. "Mistakes like this create instability. Addressing them publicly restores confidence. Confidence built on one person." I opened the folder. My name, the same language, stronger consequences, permanent notes in my record. I'm being used as an example, I said. Celeste nodded once. Examples help teams learn. Learn what I asked. That silence keeps you safe. The room stayed still. Mina leaned closer. If you sign, we avoid escalation. Escalation into what I asked. Her voice lowered. Legal involvement, long-term implications. Celeste cut in. This isn't personal. Mia, this is resolution. I closed the folder. This isn't resolution, I said. It's control. A ripple moved through the room. Someone shifted in their chair. Celeste's smile tightened. Careful. With what I asked. Telling the truth, she held my gaze. With your future, I sat back. Steady. The documents, the silence, the pressure. It all pointed in one direction. They didn't want answers. They wanted compliance. And I understood then that the ending they had written for me only worked if I agreed to read my lines. What's the one sentence that can stop a public takedown cold? Mina slid the folder back toward me. We're ready to proceed. I didn't touch it. Celeste watched, patient in the way people get when they think time is on their side. This is your last opportunity to close this cleanly. I'm not signing, I said. A murmur rippled through the room. Someone whispered my name like a warning. Mina leaned in. Refusal escalates consequences. I know, I replied. That's why I'm choosing it. Celeste's smile thinned. Then you're leaving us no choice. I nodded once. I'm invoking my right under the company charter. The words landed softly. The effect wasn't. Celeste blinked. Explain. I'm requesting an immediate pause on disciplinary action, I said, keeping my voice even. Pending review by the board. That's not how this works, Mina said. It is, I replied. Section 9. Emergency Governance Protections. A manager near the screen shifted. That clause is for shareholders. I know, Celeste laughed. Quick and dismissive. Mia, this isn't the time for theatrics. I agree, I said. That's why I'll keep it brief. I met her eyes. I'm a founding shareholder. Silence fell in a way I'd never heard before. Not tense, not awkward, empty. Celeste's posture changed first. That's not possible. It's documented, I said, issued at incorporation. I've never disclosed it internally. Mina's hand tightened on the folder. Why wouldn't we know this? You didn't ask, I replied. You assumed. A few people looked down. Others stared at me openly now, recalculating. Celeste stood. We'll take a recess. No, I said. You'll halt this process. Her jaw set. You don't give orders here. I do when procedure is being abused, I said. And when people are being coerced, the room felt different. Chairs straightened, pens paused midair. Authority doesn't announce itself. It's recognized. Celeste exhaled slowly. We'll consult legal. Please do, I said. As the meeting dissolved into hurried whispers, I remained seated, calm and unmistakably present. Nothing about me had changed. Only what they finally understood. What do people say when they realize they misjudged you? Celeste found me before legal did. Mia, she said, softer now. Can we talk privately? I didn't move. Say it here. Her eyes flicked to the managers still hovering near the door. This doesn't need an audience. It already had one, I replied. She drew a careful breath. There's been a misunderstanding. A lot happened very fast. Things only move fast when no one is asking questions, I said. Celeste stepped closer, lowering her voice. I didn't know about your shareholder status. If I had, you would have behaved differently. I finished. That's the point. Her mouth tightened. I would have handled it more appropriately. Appropriate for who I asked. She tried another angle. I'm willing to reset this. We can revisit your role, title. Compensation, negotiation requires trust, I said. You spent yours. Mina joined us, pale. The board has been notified. Good, I replied. So has compliance. Celeste straightened. An audit over one incident is excessive. This isn't about one incident, I said. It's about how you create obedience. She scoffed. I run a company, not a support group. You run fear like a system, I said. That's why the evidence isn't financial. Mina looked at me. Then what is it, language? I said, done pressure. Threats disguised as process. Documents pushed before questions are answered. Celeste's voice hardened. You're overreaching, I'm documenting, I replied. There's a difference. A phone buzzed. Mina glanced down, then back up. Legal wants statements from everyone present. Celeste's confidence cracked just enough. Mia, This can still be handled internally. I shook my head. Accountability doesn't hide. She stared at me, searching for leverage that wasn't there anymore. You're making this personal. No, I said. I'm making it permanent. When they stepped away to take the call, I remained where I was, hands steady, posture unchanged. Power doesn't disappear when challenged. It shows its shape. What does accountability look like when no one is spared? The notice arrived before noon. Mina stood in my doorway, holding her tablet with both hands. The board voted, she said. Celeste is being removed for abuse of authority. No qualifiers, no soft language. And the rest, I asked. Disciplinary actions, she replied. Documented coercion, improper pressure, mandatory retraining for managers, terminations where warranted. I nodded once. Jonas didn't come to me. He didn't need to. His reassignment memo circulated quietly. No announcement, no explanation. His new role sat 2 levels lower, stripped of decision rights. The silence around his name was the penalty. Evan stopped by later. He hovered, unsure. I wanted to say, I should have spoken up. I know, I said. He waited for more. There wasn't any. Compliance scheduled interviews. Legal requested timelines. I answered questions with dates and quotes, not opinions. When asked what outcome I wanted, I kept it simple. Protections, I said. Written, enforced. A week later, Mina returned with drafts. We added a cooling period, she said. No disciplinary documents before an investigation. No personal liability language without counsel present. Add an employee advocate, I said, independent, assigned automatically. She typed. Done. I didn't celebrate. I didn't linger in hallways to watch faces change. When colleagues thanked me, I redirected them to the policy links. This isn't about me, I said. It's about what happens next time. At the final review, a board member spoke carefully. You could take a larger role. I won't, I replied. Why not? Because fixing a system doesn't require running it, I said. It requires boundaries. I signed the last document and stood. The room felt lighter, not because justice is loud, but because it's precise. I left with a folder under my arm and a plan already in motion standards, written clearly enough that fear wouldn't have room to hide. What if the real test was never about money or mistakes? I didn't announce my departure. I simply stopped showing up to the meetings that had once demanded my silence. When the interim chief operating officer asked if I planned to return to daily operations, I shook my head. I'm keeping my shareholder role, I said. I'm not staying in the building. He looked relieved and disappointed at the same time. You could shape the culture from the inside. I already did, I replied. Now it needs space to breathe. I cleared my desk without ceremony. Jonas passed by once, eyes down, carrying a box that was smaller than it used to be. He paused as if he might speak. Then he didn't. That was fine. We had already said everything that mattered. Outside the company, work came easily. People called with ideas, not pitches questions. I chose one and said yes. A small venture, clear roles, written protections, no private rooms where pressure could hide. In the first team meeting, a junior analyst asked, "What happens if someone makes a mistake?" "We investigate," I said. "We don't punish first." Another voice followed. "And if the person is junior, especially then," I said. "Power doesn't get to be lazy." Weeks later, a former colleague stopped by. "You never told us who you were," she said, not accusing, curious. I wasn't testing competence. I told her I was testing character. She nodded slowly. That explains a lot. I kept my stake in the old company and used it the way it was meant to be used: oversight, not control. Policies stayed. Advocates were assigned. Documents changed language, quietly, permanently. I never pretended to be weak to be pitied. I stayed quiet to listen. I wanted to know who would reach for power the moment they thought no one important was watching. I took with me and built into every decision after authority reveals itself in small moments. The way a leader speaks when they think you can't push back. The way a system treats people who look ordinary. If respect only appears when fear does, it was never respect. It was compliance. I didn't leave angry. I left clear, and clarity, once earned, is something no one gets to take from you.